My parents called the police and told them I stole their money. Not misplaced it. Not lost it. Stole it. And the police didn't show up at our house. They showed up at my school. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine this for a second. You're 16 years old. You're standing in the middle of a crowded high school hallway during lunch. Lockers slamming. People laughing. Phones out. Normal chaos. Then suddenly a police officer walks in. And he's asking for you. That's exactly what happened to me. My name is Emily Carter. I was 16 at the time, a junior at Westbridge High School. I wasn't the rebellious kid. I wasn't the troublemaker. I was the quiet one. Good grades. Part-time job at a bookstore. Saving every dollar I could because I wanted to go to college without drowning in debt. But on that day, none of that mattered. Because my parents had already told everyone the story they believed. That I stole $5,000 from them. $5,000. That's what they claimed had disappeared from the safe in their bedroom closet. And according to them, there was only one person who could have taken it. Me. Now let me ask you something. What would you do if the people who were supposed to trust you the most were the ones accusing you? Would you scream? Would you argue? Would you break down? Because when Officer Daniel Ruiz walked into my school that afternoon, everyone expected me to do one of those things. But I didn't. The office assistant opened the classroom door halfway through history class and said my name. When I stepped into the hallway, Officer Ruiz was standing there next to the principal, Mr. Bennett. You could feel the shift in the air immediately. Students started whispering. Phones started coming out. The rumors started spreading before I even knew what was happening. Officer Ruiz wasn't aggressive. He wasn't rude either. He spoke calmly, like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Emily Carter, he asked. I nodded. I need you to come with me for a moment. And that's when I saw them. My parents were standing at the end of the hallway near the lockers. My mother, Karen Carter, age 44, arms crossed tightly across her chest like she had already decided the outcome of the trial. My father, Mark Carter, 47, standing beside her looking angry and impatient. The second my mom saw me, she pointed. That's her, she said. Right there. In front of the officer. In front of the principal. In front of half the hallway. She stole the money. The whispers exploded instantly. Stole what? How much? From her own parents? You could practically feel the attention spreading like a shockwave down the lockers. Now here's the strange part. I didn't defend myself. I didn't argue. I didn't panic. And that confused everyone. Because the truth was, I had been expecting this moment. Not the police part exactly. But the accusation? Yeah, that part wasn't new. For the past year, money had been disappearing in our house. Small amounts at first. $100 here. $200 there. Every single time it happened, my mom would storm into my room and start asking questions. Did you take it? Where did you put it? Are you lying to me? Every time I said the same thing. I didn't take anything. And every time, she looked at me like she didn't believe a word. So when Officer Ruiz looked at me in that hallway and said, "Your parents believe you may have hidden the missing money at school, possibly in your locker," I wasn't surprised. Embarrassed? Yes. Angry? Definitely. But surprised? Not really. He gestured down the hallway. Would you mind opening it for us? Now picture the scene. 200 students watching. My parents staring at me like they already knew what was about to happen. The principal standing there with that tight professional smile administrators use when things are about to get messy. And Officer Ruiz walking beside me. Step by step. Down the line of lockers. Nobody spoke. The hallway was suddenly quieter than a library. You could hear lockers closing in the distance. Someone whispering my name. Someone else saying, "Oh my God." We stopped in front of locker number 314. Mine. Officer Ruiz stepped slightly to the side and said calmly, "Go ahead." My heart was racing. Not because I was scared, but because I knew something they didn't. I reached into my backpack. Pulled out the key. The metal shook slightly in my fingers. I slid it into the lock. Click. The door popped open. And before anyone else could move, I stepped aside so the officer could look inside. He pulled the locker door open slowly, looked at the contents. Then he froze. Not for long. Just long enough for his expression to change. And then, he turned slowly toward my parents. The entire hallway went silent, because whatever he had just seen in my locker was not what anyone expected. Have you ever watched someone realize in real time that their accusation is about to collapse? Because that's exactly what happened the moment Officer Ruiz looked inside my locker. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared. Then he leaned forward slightly, studying the shelves more carefully, like he was trying to understand what he was seeing. Behind him, my parents were already talking. My mother's voice cut through the hallway. "Well, is it in there?" You could hear the certainty in her tone. Not suspicion. Not doubt. Certainty. She had already decided I was guilty. And apparently, she expected the officer to pull out a stack of stolen cash, like some kind of movie scene. But that's not what happened. Officer Ruiz slowly reached into my locker and pulled out the first thing he saw. It wasn't money. It was a folder. A thick one. Then he pulled out another. Then a third. The hallway was so quiet you could hear paper sliding. My mom frowned. "What is that?" she asked. Officer Ruiz didn't answer immediately. Instead, he flipped open the first folder and started reading. Now, let me take you back for a moment. Because this story didn't start in that hallway. It started almost a year earlier. The first time the money went missing. At the time, it was only $100. My mom stormed into my room without knocking. "Emily, did you take money from my purse?" I was sitting on my bed doing homework. "No." She didn't believe me. I could see it in her face immediately. She searched my backpack, my desk, my drawers. Nothing. She left my room frustrated but unconvinced. And that pattern kept repeating. $200 disappeared. $300 another time. Every single time, the same accusation. "Emily, where did you put it?" But something about it never made sense to me. Because while my parents thought I was secretly stealing money, I was actually doing the opposite. I was saving every dollar I could. I worked 3 evenings a week at a small bookstore downtown. Minimum wage. Nothing glamorous. But it was mine. I deposited almost everything I earned, which meant I had receipts, pay stubs, bank confirmations. And after the 4th accusation, I started keeping them. At first, it was just a habit. Proof for myself. But then something strange happened. The accusations got bigger. The amounts got larger. And the tone changed. Instead of asking questions, my mom started acting like the case was already closed. "You're the only one who could have taken it." That's when I started paying closer attention. And that's when I noticed something odd. Every time money disappeared, it happened on a day my mom had gone out alone. At first, it felt like coincidence. But then I started checking the mail. Bank envelopes. Account summaries. The kind most people throw away without reading. Inside those envelopes were bank statements. And on those statements, I started seeing something interesting. Cash withdrawals. Not small ones. Hundreds of dollars. Sometimes thousands. And the dates? They matched the days my parents claimed money had vanished from the safe. So I started doing something careful. Something quiet. Every time a statement came in the mail, I made a copy. Every time I got a paycheck, I saved the stub. Every time money disappeared from the house, I wrote down the date. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't confront my parents. I just documented everything. And when my mom started saying I might be hiding money at school, I moved the folders into my locker. Insurance. Protection. Which brings us back to the hallway. Officer Ruiz was still flipping through the documents. My mom was getting impatient. "Officer, the money won't be in papers. She must have hidden it somewhere." He didn't respond. Instead, he pulled out a second item from my locker. A small metal lockbox. Now the hallway whispers started again. "What's in that? Is that where the cash is?" My dad leaned forward slightly. "There," he said. "That's probably it." Officer Ruiz placed the box on the locker shelf and looked at me. "Emily, do you have the key?" I nodded. It was on the same ring as my locker key. I handed it to him. He unlocked the box, lifted the lid, and looked inside. Then he froze again, this time longer. He reached inside and slowly pulled out a stack of papers. Not cash. Bank statements. My mom's bank statements. He read the top one carefully. Then another. Then another. And suddenly the energy in the hallway changed. The officer turned his head slightly toward my parents. His voice was calm. Very calm. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "these withdrawals, they're from your account." My mom blinked. "What?" He held up one of the pages. $3,000. Withdrawn last Thursday. The exact day my parents said the safe had been emptied. The hallway went silent again. My dad frowned. My mom's face went pale. But the officer wasn't finished reading yet. And the next document he picked up made the entire situation even worse for my parents. What would you expect to find in the locker of someone accused of stealing $5,000? Cash stuffed in a backpack? An envelope taped to the back wall? Maybe a hidden stash behind textbooks? That's exactly what everyone in the hallway expected when Officer Ruiz opened my lockbox. But instead, he was holding something far more dangerous than stolen money. Proof. The kind of proof that doesn't argue. The kind that doesn't yell. The kind that simply sits there and lets the truth speak for itself. Officer Ruiz pulled out the first bank statement and held it closer to the hallway lights. I watched his eyes scan the page. Date. Withdrawal. Location. Amount. Then he reached for another. And another. Behind him, the whispers started again. What's he looking at? Is it money? No, those are papers. My mom stepped forward, her voice tight. "Officer, I don't understand what that has to do with anything. The money was in our safe." Officer Ruiz didn't look up yet. He flipped to the second page. "Mrs. Carter," he said calmly, "this statement shows a cash withdrawal of $2,000. My mom shrugged quickly. "So? From an ATM." She crossed her arms. "That's my account. I'm allowed to withdraw my own money." "Of course," he replied. Then he turned the page toward her. "The withdrawal happened the same day you reported that $2,000 went missing from your home." The hallway went completely silent. Not the kind of quiet where people whisper. The kind where nobody even breathes too loudly. My dad blinked. "What?" Officer Ruiz pulled another statement from the stack. "This one shows another withdrawal. $1,000. 3 weeks ago." He glanced at my parents. "That also matches the date you told me the money disappeared." I watched my mother's face carefully. First confusion. Then irritation. Then something else. Something that looked a lot like panic. She shook her head quickly. "That doesn't mean anything. I withdrew money. That doesn't mean Emily didn't steal it." That's when Officer Ruiz finally closed the lockbox and turned toward her fully. "Mrs. Carter," he said slowly, "every single withdrawal listed here matches the exact dates you reported money missing from your safe." Behind him, students started whispering again. "Wait, what does that mean?" My father stepped forward now. "Karen, what is he talking about?" She turned toward him immediately. "It's nothing. But Officer Ruiz wasn't done. He pulled something else from my locker. My notebook. The small spiral notebook I had been keeping for months. He flipped it open. Every page had dates written neatly in blue pen. Dates. Amounts. Notes. He read the first entry out loud. March 12th. Mom said $200 missing from purse. Then the next. April 2nd. Dad said $300 missing from safe. Another. May 9th. $500 missing. Mom accused me again. The hallway murmurs got louder. Students leaned closer. My mom's face turned red. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "She's just making things up." But Officer Ruiz kept reading. Because next to every one of those entries, I had written something else. Bank withdrawal dates. The same ones from the statements. Matching. Exactly. He slowly closed the notebook and looked up. Not at me. At my parents. "You see the pattern here?" he asked. My father looked back and forth between the documents. His voice sounded confused now. "Karen, why are the dates the same?" My mom opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. There's an explanation. But there wasn't. And everyone knew it, including the officer. He placed the documents carefully back into the lockbox. Then he asked a simple question. Mrs. Carter, when you reported this theft, did you check your own bank withdrawals first? She didn't answer. My dad looked at her again, this time with something different in his eyes. Suspicion. Karen. The hallway had gone dead quiet again. Officer Ruiz reached back into the locker one more time. And this time, he pulled out the final envelope. The one I hadn't shown anyone yet. Even I felt my heart speed up a little watching him hold it. Because this envelope contained the piece that explained everything. He opened it, pulled out the paper inside. Read it once. Then again. And when he looked up, his expression had completely changed. He slowly turned toward my parents. But this time, there was no confusion in his voice. Only certainty. Mrs. Carter, he said quietly, would you like to explain why these withdrawals were being used to pay off a private credit card account your husband doesn't know about? My father froze. My mom's face went completely white. And the hallway erupted in shocked whispers. Because the accusation against me had just turned into something much bigger. Have you ever watched someone's entire story fall apart in real time? Not slowly. Not quietly. All at once. Because the moment Officer Ruiz read that credit card statement, the entire hallway changed. The whispers stopped. The students who had been recording suddenly lowered their phones. And every single pair of eyes turned toward my parents. My dad blinked like he hadn't understood the sentence. What credit card? He asked. Officer Ruiz didn't answer immediately. Instead, he held up the paper so the adults could see it. According to this statement, he said calmly, multiple cash withdrawals from Mrs. Carter's account were used to pay off balances on a separate credit card. He paused. One that appears to be in her name only. My father looked at my mom slowly. Confusion. Then concern. Then something else. Karen, he said quietly, what is he talking about? My mom didn't answer. Not right away. Her eyes moved between the officer, the papers, the students watching, and finally me. And for the first time that entire afternoon, she didn't look angry. She looked cornered. Those statements don't prove anything, she said quickly. But even as she spoke, the confidence in her voice was gone. Officer Ruiz tilted his head slightly. Actually, they prove quite a bit. He tapped the document. These payments line up exactly with the cash withdrawals. He tapped the notebook next. And the dates your daughter recorded the accusations. Then he looked directly at her. So the question becomes, why accuse Emily? The silence that followed felt heavier than anything that had happened so far. My dad spoke again. Slower this time. Karen, were you taking the money from the safe? My mom rubbed her temples like the hallway lights were suddenly too bright. It wasn't like that. That's not an answer, my dad said. Officer Ruiz didn't interrupt. He just watched. Because now the truth wasn't coming from evidence. It was coming from pressure. From the moment when lies stopped being sustainable. Finally, my mom exhaled. A long, tired breath. I had some bills, she said quietly. What bills? My dad asked. She hesitated. Then she said something none of us expected. I had credit card debt. The hallway murmur started again. Not loud, but enough. My dad stared at her. How much? She didn't answer. How much? He repeated. Officer Ruiz glanced at the statement again. Approximately $12,000, he said. The number landed like a dropped weight. 12,000. My dad stepped back slightly. $12,000? My mom crossed her arms again, but this time it wasn't defensive. It looked embarrassed. I was handling it, she said. How? He asked. With our money? She pointed toward me suddenly. I didn't mean to blame Emily. The sentence came out louder than she expected. And suddenly everyone was looking at me again. Officer Ruiz's voice stayed calm. Then why did you? My mom looked down at the floor. I panicked. She spoke so quietly some students had to lean forward to hear. Mark kept asking where the money was going. I didn't want him to know about the card. My dad looked stunned. So you told the police our daughter stole it? I didn't think it would get this far. That sentence hung in the air. Because here was the truth. She hadn't expected consequences. She thought the accusation would scare me. Maybe force a confession that never existed. Maybe make the problem disappear. But instead, it had brought a police officer into a crowded school hallway and exposed everything. Officer Ruiz closed the folder. "Mrs. Carter," he said carefully, "filing a false report is a serious matter." My dad rubbed his face. "Oh my God." The principal, Mr. Bennett, finally stepped forward. "All right," he said gently but firmly. "Let's move this conversation somewhere more private." The students slowly began drifting away. Phones lowered. Whispers spreading down the hallway like wildfire. But before anyone moved, Officer Ruiz turned toward me. His tone softened. "Emily," he said, "I need to ask you something." I nodded. "How long have you been keeping those records?" I shrugged slightly. "About 8 months." He looked genuinely impressed. "Why?" I glanced briefly at my parents, then back at him. "Because no one believed me." The hallway went quiet again. Officer Ruiz nodded slowly. "That was very smart." He paused, then added something that no one else expected. "If you hadn't done that, this situation might have ended very differently." My mom didn't say anything. My dad didn't either. But the look on his face said enough. Because the story that started with them accusing me had ended with the truth staring them in the face. And the consequences were only just beginning. Have you ever noticed how quiet things get after the truth finally comes out? Not the tense silence from earlier. Not the kind filled with suspicion and whispers. A different kind. The kind where everyone suddenly realizes they were watching the wrong person the whole time. That's what the hallway at Westbridge High felt like after Officer Ruiz closed the folder. The crowd that had gathered around the lockers slowly started to break apart. Students drifted away in small groups, whispering to each other as they walked. Some glanced at me with curiosity. Others looked at my parents. But the energy had shifted completely. An hour earlier, everyone thought I was the girl who stole from her family. Now they knew something very different. Principal Bennett cleared his throat gently. "All right," he said. "Let's move this to the office." Officer Ruiz nodded. My parents followed him down the hallway. For a second, I just stood there, looking at my locker, looking at the folders that had just changed everything. 8 months of quiet notes, pay stubs, bank copies, dates written in blue pen, proof that I hadn't taken a single dollar. My best friend Jasmine suddenly appeared beside me. She had probably pushed through half the hallway to get there. Her eyes were wide. "Emily, what just happened?" I let out a small breath. "It's complicated." "No kidding," she said. Then she looked down the hall toward my parents. "Your mom seriously called the police on you?" "Yeah." Jasmine shook her head slowly. "That's insane." Before I could answer, Principal Bennett called my name. "Emily, please come to the office as well." So I followed them. The walk felt different now. Earlier, every step down that hallway felt like walking toward a trial. Now it felt like walking through the aftermath. When we reached the office, the adults sat around the conference table. Officer Ruiz, Principal Bennett, my parents, and me. No students. No whispers. Just the quiet hum of the air conditioner. Officer Ruiz spoke first. "Mrs. Carter," he said calmly, "calling the police to report a theft is serious." My mom stared at the table. He continued. "But it appears the missing money was not stolen." My dad rubbed his forehead. "No, it wasn't." The officer nodded. "I'm not filing charges today." Everyone looked up at that. "But I strongly advise resolving the financial issues in your household honestly moving forward." He looked at my mom when he said the word honestly. She nodded slightly. Principal Bennett folded his hands. "From the school's perspective," he said, "this situation caused quite a disturbance." My face warmed a little. "But," he continued, "Emily did nothing wrong." He looked at me. "In fact, the documentation you kept showed remarkable responsibility." That was the first moment all afternoon someone had said something positive about me. And it felt strange. Because the entire situation never should have happened in the first place. Officer Ruiz gathered the papers and handed them back to me. "You might want to keep these somewhere safe," he said. I nodded. "Thank you." A few minutes later, the meeting ended. Officer Ruiz left. Principal Bennett returned to his office. And suddenly, it was just the three of us standing in the hallway. Me, my mom, my dad. My father spoke first. His voice sounded tired. Emily, I'm sorry. It was the first apology I heard that day. My mom didn't say anything at first. Then finally she looked up. Her voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. I shouldn't have blamed you. No yelling. No excuses. Just that. And honestly, I didn't know how to respond. Because the truth was, something had changed. Not just for them. For me too. Trust doesn't break all at once. It cracks slowly. Every accusation. Every moment someone refuses to believe you. Those things add up. So I just nodded. Later that night, I sat on my bed and looked through the notebook again. Page after page of dates and accusations. Proof that the truth had always been there. It just took the right moment for someone to finally see it. And that moment happened when a police officer opened a locker in the middle of a crowded high school hallway. Let me ask you something. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have fought back right away? Would you have yelled? Or would you have done what I did? Stayed quiet, collected proof, and waited for the truth to speak for itself. Because sometimes the loudest defense isn't shouting. Sometimes it's preparation. And when that locker door opened, I didn't need to say a single word. The evidence said everything.